Say hello. Say hello. One of the things I want to do this week in particular is really talk about worry, because I'm seeing it a lot more out and about on the road. People carrying with them these huge amounts of worry about all sorts of things, about how they're going to afford this or how they're going to keep paying that, or what it's going to be like in the winter, or carrying worry from before because uncertainty has been drilled into everybody, or worry for any number of things, even worry about what you're worrying about and you're uncertain about it. So I think we will go through a whole bunch of stuff on how I have other people try and deal with worry. Because one of the things I think, and I'm not at all saying that cancer and worry are the same, and no one knows about anyone else's cancer, I know that much. But actually, when you get something like a lump, you go to someone, hopefully they isolate it, they cut it out, and then if you're lucky, you get the all clear. But the problem with worry is you don't have something to show. Someone can't tell you where it is and draw a big line around it. And then no one comes along and cuts it out for you. The only person that can do any of those things is you. And you've got enough on because your brain's full of worry. So this is going to be the worry week, in the aim and idea that by the end of the week, your life is much more worry-free. I was having a thought, I know, unusual, about what I wanted to do this week. I am actually in the UK all week, and one of the things that's really been striking me on the road as I've been going from place to place or doing stand-up or whatever, and online, is the amount of worry that I think people are carrying around with them. And some of that is known about. So known worry, when you know, like, oh gosh, I need to stop worrying. And other worry is worry that's just kind of gnawing away, filling up the space in your head and leaving you very little other room. So you end up doing things like putting the milk in the microwave, or trying to find your shoes and realising that you've put them in the bathroom cupboard, because there's not much space left in people's heads, because worrying takes up loads and loads of space. And I think part of that is actually not the fault of anyone. And it's not like we have to find blame for worry, but sometimes finding out what's causing it is helpful. But I think one of the things about the kind of worry that's prevalent at the moment, it's because of what just happened in the last couple of years here in this country, or 3 years. So lockdown and imprisoning people in their homes and making them paranoid about whatever COVID was supposed to be, like seasonal flu, trying to make people believe they were going to die, or that relatives were dying in big numbers, or showing pictures of coffins, just pushing in fear and worry and anxiety and uncertainty. And one of the things we do less well with typically is uncertainty. And everything people felt certain about before kind of got shook up and chopped up and thrown out a window. And I think that has a whole lot to do with this kind of undercurrent of anxiousness or worrying that people are suffering for. Obviously, no one's talking about that. No one's prepared to address the reasons for that. And my personal opinion is it's a deliberate thing. It's almost like a deliberate attack on a whole population to make them feel uncertain and to look for guidance and advice more often than they did before, when you felt more in control of your own life. So I think that's the backdrop to it. So I thought we'd spend a week, whether you want to join me or not, it's what I'm going to be doing. And I think many of you that know this channel well or are part of Katie's Arms will recognise that what we do is we hang out and we talk about stuff that we observe each other wants to talk about, but we don't ask anyone else to join in, and we don't ask anyone else to have to agree, and we respect the fact that what we think or I think might not be what someone else thinks, and it might be to you a load of old bollocks, and all of that is perfectly fine. So in the week I want to talk about stopping worrying. Tomorrow I want to talk about unraveling worry, because it's all a big jumble of blur very often. Wednesday, interrogating specific worries to get to the bottom of them. And I know that's something I have to do when I'm trying to stop the thing and put it away. Thursday, the put away day, is where we try to take the worry and put it away. And you could say, well, if you're not fixing it or you're not solving it, that doesn't help. But I think all of these things might help. And even if one of them helps in some little way, or nothing helps at all, we've at least tried our little best. There's a lot of repetition. You will repeat that loop a lot and then begin replacing the worry. So Friday is about finding things to replace the worry with, and also recognizing, I really want to talk about what's the worst that can happen. Because funnily enough, it's one of the things that people say flippantly, what's the worst that could happen? Well, death. But actually really looking at what's the worst that can happen and preparing for it is what I've done a lot in my life, including death. And that's worked out really well. Being prepared for those things, even death, is actually terrifically reassuring because you feel kind of organised. It's like you just had some sort of steaming process to parts of you that most people don't see. So that's my plan for the week. And it's also kind of a task to myself because I'm not very good at sticking to one subject, am I? So that's what we're going to do. #worry week. And the idea isn't that we worry more, is that we talk about worrying and people on the chat and things can share their ideas as well, preferably on the topics that we're actually trying to address this particular day. So on this day, it's about stopping. And my point on this, I suppose, or my thought, is that with worrying, you have to want to stop. So if you kind of enjoy a bit of a worry, like it's a sort of a pastime, like some people like eating, some people like doing sport, some people like watching TV, some people like watching Netflix, whatever it is you like to do. Some people, I think, possibly quite enjoy a worry. Like, well, have a little worry and that'll pass the time. Because it does pass, it is an activity in itself. So that would be like me and wine. I don't think I actually have a wine problem. I mean, it's arguable. But what I do think is I'm not suggesting for one moment I would stop worrying, because stop drinking, because I don't actually want to. So it'd be futile. I can say, oh yes, I might do dry January, but I don't even mean it. I don't even mean it as I'm saying it. I'm usually kind of being supportive to someone who is doing it. And I just think, well, that's just going to make January a whole lot more shit. But my point is, you have to want to stop. You have to want to stop the behaviour that is consciously or unconsciously, subconsciously, using up your brain and causing you. And the reason you can find out or feel it, can't you, physically in yourself? So you end up with these weird necks where you're like, right, I can't actually turn right today because I can't look right and we say I slept funny. And I tend to think that's a load of bollocks as well. I tend to think it isn't that we slept funny. I mean, apart from when I wake up in a departures lounge with one head on half a chair and a leg up someone else's armpit. But it's not that you slept funny. It's usually that you're carrying so much tension here and you find out you've set your jaw in the night, like you're sleeping literally like that. That's what it is. And we have to kind of let all that stuff go. So I think it's about wanting to stop so that you can stop some of the hurt or stop some of the filling up of your brain, and so that you can maybe feel a bit better and your shoulders can drop down instead of carrying them up round here, which makes us all walk like absolute morons. The second thing I wanted to say was that as a pastime, anxiety or worrying, or whatever you want to call your particular thing, is, I think, self-harm. I think we don't really talk about it in that way. We say, oh, I'm having a bit of a worry. Yeah, I'm a bit of a worrywart. But actually, if you think of it like self-harm, it's like taking a razor blade to your little arms or something, or your thighs, to release stress, except this is just you turning things over and over and over and over and beating yourself up and telling yourself that's probably not good, or this might not end well, or this might not work out. Sorry about the lions. I think it is an act of self-harm. And I think that's why stopping it is so important, or at least stopping some of it. Or at least stopping some of the bits that it turns out you can control. Maybe you can't control all of it, but maybe we can stop some of it. So I think it's about stopping, about recognising that it's self-harm that you're doing to yourself, and you have to look after yourself. I tell my daughter this all the time because she works too much, which is there has to be days where you're looking after yourself. Because as people like us who have lots of people to look after, if you don't look after yourself, everyone else doesn't stand a bloody chance. And the thing I wanted to say, my third thing today, was apart from this idea of wanting to stop and needing to stop the self-harm of worrying and giving yourself anxiety and making yourself feel stressed, is the set of rules that you're going to need to be really disciplined about with yourself in order for us to make some kind of change this week or start change. And one of those things from my personal experience, and let's think of an example of like being deported, and other examples don't need to be this dramatic, but one of the things about like a massive worry, like, oh, what's going to happen? Where will I be put? I wonder what plane I'll be sent back on. I wonder if the press will be there. I wonder if someone will try and do something to me on the way. I wonder how this is going at home. I wonder, is I would have those kind of thoughts, or I have worrying thoughts in the morning when I first wake up. It's why I never lie in, because if I lie in, that would just be me self-harming until I get up. So when I wake up, I get up and I decide to myself, I will not think until I've drunk coffee. Because by the time I have coffee on, I've fed the dogs, I've got the radio on, I've got lights on, I'm feeling like, boop, boop, here we go, let's do today. So I have a rule with myself. I say no thoughts before coffee. Good or bad, no thoughts before coffee. That won't be your rule. But what you can do is work out which bit of your day, when are you particularly prone? It might be last thing at night. It might be in the middle of the night. I think that's when the monsters come for a lot of people. So it's identifying when's your big self-harm moment? When is it? And then working out what's the best way to stop it. So in the night, if you're doing it, I know some people say put a notebook by your bed, but I think there has to be a mechanism that kicks in that says, this is self-harm, this needs to stop. And in replacement of the anxiety worry stuff, I am only going to think about, and my actual thought is camping in the rain. So I pretend I'm in a tent in the rain. There is a replacement thing that's needed to fill what you're worrying about. And it should be something great that you love to do. So I guess structurally, it's about agreeing you're going to stop the worry this week. That's what we're working on. That agreeing anxiety or worrying or taking time to just stress about stuff without actually doing anything about it is actually self-harm. And that you're going to start to create a series of rules, which can be terribly basic, like no thoughts before coffee. It does mean that I'm a moron before I've had coffee, but no thoughts before coffee. And therefore for you, if it's 1 a.m, I will stop and I will plan this, or I will think of this trip, or if I was going to have a caravan, I'll decide what's in it. I don't know what your thing is. I'm going to remember the best football game I ever saw. What's the replacement that you're going to kick into that stops and actually exchanges the worrying with something good that you can think about? It doesn't have to be good as in noble or worthy. It can be the time you danced naked around a pole and someone tried to shove a £20 note up your bottom. It doesn't matter what you're going to replace the worrying with, but it needs to be something, and you need to have it ready so that you can discipline and shift. Discipline, shift. So you'll stop the worrying, you discipline that you're not going to do that to yourself because it's self-harm, and you shift to thinking about something else until you're either asleep or, like me, you're drinking coffee and you're getting ready to start the day. So do join in, do share your thoughts about worrying and either how much it's impacting on you, whether it's got worse, what you like to do about it. And throughout this week, we will look at ways of trying to go from just stopping this thing to unraveling it, to putting it away in a box, to repeating that process, and then working through some solutions for the stuff that actually does bother us that we can control. So it's no kind of Martin Lewis money programme. I actually happen to think that trying to save yourself £2.50 by turning off a light bulb is not the sort of thing that's actually going to stop the big worries in our life anyway. But that is what Worry Week is going to be about. I hope you want to join in. And of course, in the background, we'll be doing my normal stuff and nonsense just to cheer myself up or to give you guys a laugh or to let you laugh at me, which is essentially what I spend most of my time doing. So I'll see you tomorrow. And tomorrow, look at this, I even have a plan. We'll be unraveling worries, sorting them out, which will be step 1 if today was pre-step, step 1 in Worry Week. Here with me, Katie Hopkins. Do sign up and join our family at www.katiesarms.com, and I can promise you your details never go anywhere, and it's only lovely Mark that has that email list. So I'll see you tomorrow when we'll be unraveling worries together. Welcome to Worry Week Part 2. I'm quite proud of myself because we've actually got to Part 2. And because I'm not much of a completer finisher, as they say, one part and I'm like, right, okay, let's move on to something else now. But all week, as you will know, if you're following along with Worry Week, we're looking at worry because I feel like people are carrying around with them monumental levels of worry. And interestingly, some of you have put brilliant comments under here about things you do or the way you think about worry or how you try and manage it when you get particularly anxious or fearful. And others of you are saying, do you know what, I'm watching this and I got kind of upset and I didn't necessarily know I was carrying stuff, but I think I am. And I think that's the truth for more people than we know, because when I'm doing stand-up or I'm in rooms or doing my speakeasy somewhere and everybody's having a really good laugh and a few drinks and whatever, and a few hours later, very often when I'm still talking with people afterwards, it's tears that come and it's tears that keep coming. And I think that's the real truth about unlocking all of this, is when you unlock happy or you're in a room with people and you feel comfortable and relaxed again, all of this other stuff that you've been carrying starts coming out. And I think that's true of millions of people, not just in the UK, but millions of people all over the place. And I see it in America as well. People are carrying these kind of almost like those upturned water tankers that you get when you get water in a kind of public place or a gym. People are carrying those round above their eyes or on top of their hearts, and you have to let some of this go. So yesterday we were talking about worry in terms of acknowledging that, are you wanting to stop the whole worrying thing? Because like me drinking, if I don't want to stop, I'm not going to. And my plan on that front is not to stop. But I think worrying is something we do need to get rid of because it is self-harm. Even if you find a little bit of a worry kind of therapeutic over and over in your head, repeat mode, filling up the brain space is not a good thing. And today we were talking about sorting out worries, and my excellent prep work is being complemented today by some god-awful ties of lovely marks. And I do have more of the collection here. Just remember that back in the day, ties were quite a thing. And let's remember lovely Mark comes from a design background and was really very much about ties. Mark also owns a sari that he used to wear. He has a full kind of Indian, other alternative outfit that he used to wear. He used to have a long ankle length black leather jacket. There were many phases to lovely Mark. But ties were definitely a thing. And what I think happens in our worry is actually we take a whole bunch of worries like this and we muddle them around in our heads. So there's a worry about the kids and what's going to happen about the fact the headmaster wants a word, and then what's going to happen about the bills that I've got that I haven't worked out how I'm paying yet. And my boss wants to speak to me on Sunday, and that's not good because the boss never wants to speak to me on Sunday. And I'm well now, but what if I was to get ill? And if I did get ill, what would that mean? And then who would look after this? And what about my mum? Because, who's going to look after her if this doesn't happen? And we have these kind of almost festivals of worry in our head to the point where everything is a big old jumbled scramble. And there's no way of tackling anything to do with this because nothing makes sense and the top doesn't match the tail and you can't work your way through anything because it's just a big jumble. So I think day 2, what we're needing to do is try to sort worries out. So we're not trying to deal with them. We're not trying to have answers to them. We're not trying to fix them. We're not trying to pretend to be Martin Lewis and to tell you that by turning off your washing machine between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. you can save £2.50. What we're trying to say is, well, look, I'm worrying about this particular event. This is true to my life, and whether it's going to be able to happen or not. And I'm wondering about what it will mean for people who were really kind and bought tickets if they can't come, and that will be disappointing. And I don't want them to think that I let them down, because I wouldn't let anybody down. So that would be one worry. And then another worry, and this is a minor worry, and it's not kind of real, it just troubles me, is I'm not on Twitter. I haven't been let back. I strongly don't think I will be, because my account was removed for more strategic reasons. Is there's somebody pretending to be me, but also asking for money. And it does concern me. It worries me that anybody would ever think I would ask them for. I've never, ever, ever asked anyone for money, apart from when I'm owed it by a boss. So I could do with sorting that out, actually. So that's something else I need to sort out. And then I've got the other work. And what I'm trying to make the point, but not labour it, because you're not stupid, obviously, is if you can get a pen and paper, or however your mind works. Your mind might work with post-it notes, or I'm grabbing a pen. Your mind might work differently. You know, it might work that you can make piles of things, or you can write post-it notes and put them on a wall, or it might work that you can write lists. So you have A, B, C, D, right? And each of these is a worry that corresponds to a list. And some things will probably fit together. You know, some things are probably related to each other. So a worry about, for example, for me, for an event would also be a worry that people will think I've let them down, and all of that associated. So you're grouping all of these worries into their separate places, so that even, and you definitely shouldn't go down the route of trying to work those worries out yet, and you shouldn't jump ahead. That's the key point, is that you don't jump ahead to trying to fix them, or, oh, well, I'll just sort that out. It's better to start with that you're just working out, well, this worry here is all about these bills here. And the bills I have that I'm really worried about are X, Y, and Z. And where are those bills? Okay, here they are. And I'll put those together, and that's what I'm worrying about here. That's worry C, is bills. And specifically, what is it about the bill you're worried about? When does it have to be paid? But get to the specifics of it as well. So that by the time, and I'm hoping you don't have this many worries carrying around, although I'm sure if we all thought about it, we could come up with as many worries as we want. This is how lovely Mark, because he's my husband and not me, because mine would just be thrown in a drawer, arranges his ties. Look. Imagine I'm married to someone that keeps things this tidy. And look, now I have to replace these because I pulled them off. I don't even want to do that. But the point that I'm trying to make, apart from the fact that my husband is potentially verging on the OCD, this tie I do actually like quite a lot. I would love a suit this colour, made essentially of glitter. That'd be fabulous. Is that we have to get our worries like this, so that they're clear, we can see them, and we know what each of them are. So that instead of this, and if you visualise it in your head when you're doing it to yourself, mad jumble of things that make you smaller and your brain space less, and make you feel uptight and make you shout at someone for no reason because you're carrying all this stuff and there's no room to think. And if you could just give me a minute. The reason we get to that point is because there isn't a minute, because your brain is full. So we just need to organise worry first. And then what we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to begin to work out how we go through this worry and start to put it away, or put it on a shelf. Some of it to put away temporarily. Some of it later we'll go through to look how we fix some of this stuff. But first, we have to organise and separate out these worries, because one thing's for sure, we can't tackle them till we can see each of them clearly. And once you've got them separated and written down or put on post-its or put somewhere separately, then tomorrow we can crack on with thinking about what we need to do to put these worries to bed. So that's part 2. And tomorrow we'll be back with some ideas about how we start fixing some of these worries. But for now, from me, I hope you have a very good evening. And if you find yourself awake in the middle of the night having a worry, start sorting out your ties and aspire to be like lovely Mark, where they're all individually hanging on their respective hangers. And I'll see you tomorrow for part 3 of Worry Week with me, Katie Hopkins. Hello and welcome back to part 3 of Worry Week, which, as you'll recall, is not about worrying more, but about the fact that so many people seem to be worrying so much, and I think it's having a bad effect on people and it has me all concerned. So we were having a week of working through ideas to worry less. And then this morning I had a great idea that at the back end of this week, 5 or 6 days in, however many days we're going to do this for, I will piece all of these together and then we'll have one continuous worry, thought, idea thing that will go on for about an hour. But if ever you get sufficiently worried that you're driven to the point of thinking that even watching me might be a good idea, then you can call on this particular worry week and it will all be in one jolly place and you can just listen to it, and if nothing else it will stop you worrying about whatever you're worrying about, because you can think about other things like, if I am really going to wear the same pair of jeans for a full week? And the answer to that at present seems to be yes. So today we are on step interrogate. So as a brief recap as to where we were, harking back to my old workshop days, day 1, we were talking about deciding to stop worrying, or deciding, I suppose, to do something about it. And in the sense that sort of acknowledging that worrying a lot is in fact self-harm, and we need to stop self-harm because we have quite enough going on against us in our lives, with the fact that we can't purchase eggs in the supermarket and it costs £15.80 to get one loaf of bread, without self-harming by having worries that certainly we can't do anything about at 2 a.m. if that's when you're having a worry, but also many of these worries are really not fruitful ways to try and make yourself resilient enough to survive in the British winter, where it is perpetually dark and I may as well be a frickin' mole for the amount of sunlight that I see. That's a separate thing, not to do with worries, more to do with pissed off that I live in the UK when it's like this in the winter. So we decided we were going to stop this worrying thing. Part 2, yesterday, was about unraveling, and lovely Mark's ties took a hit. And I was trying to demonstrate that all of these worries end up in like this big grey, jumbly, massive mess. And if you imagine that inside your brain, like I imagine it, if you see the picture of a brain, I imagine that big jumble of ties taking up loads of your brain space and not leaving you any room, just these tiny bits of room around the outside. And that's why worrying is also detrimental. So it was about unraveling that into separate strands, separate worries, and dealing with each of them in turn. Today is all about the interrogation of those separate strands. So you've got them worked out. This one's about the kids, this one's about my job, this one's about a health problem, this one's about separated out. And now, today, our job is to look at them in turn and to interrogate them. And by that, I mean think about them, talk about them, to the point where you've kind of worked them out a bit. And you could do this a number of different ways depending on how your brain works. You could sit down with a pen and paper and say, right, my worry, and this one's my one, is about dementia or complete memory loss, or when my mind starts to give up. And so the things that I worry about that, and why I worry about when my mind goes, or when I lose my mind, or when I don't know anymore, or when I don't have a memory anymore. And if I take that at a personal level, for me, I guess for me at the moment it's memory loss, and then it would be complete memory loss. And I worry about whether I'll know or not. And what if you lose your mind completely and you don't know? What if you don't get the time to do something about it? What if when you need to do something about it, you don't have the ability to do so? My point is that I won't choose to be around if I don't know. If my memory is so poor, I wouldn't choose to be around necessarily. That would be my choice. It's not a choice I'm inferring on anybody else. And then who would help me and who could I ask? And how soon do I need to ask them? And then I worry what it would mean about what my usefulness would be, how useful. And my children already tell me, I said that already. And my memory is definitely impacted by my surgery and epilepsy. It's like being a sportsman, I suppose, and being knocked unconscious every day when I used to have my seizures a lot. So my brain is definitely very, very damaged, and my memory is already very, very poor. So what I'm trying to give example of there is a worry that plays around and round and round in my head. And if I leave it to its own devices, you can get to the point where you just think, well, could go any moment, and what will it mean? And it's not actually it's not a straight line, is it? You don't work your way down it and you get to the end and it stops. It's a circle like this that goes on and on and on, like one of those spider kind of loops around, and you just keep worrying about it. So I literally mean that. Interrogate, what is it you're worried about? Why does it worry you? What's the impact of what you're worrying about? And for me, one of the worries is, how would I stop it? How do I make it so that if my memory is going to go so bad, I can get ahead of it? You write down all these things so that you understand, and you could maybe put them on post-it notes and stick it around it. You could use wool and bits of pins and do as if you were a detective in an agency, and you could make all these different strands of like solving the puzzle of what that worry is about. Whatever it is, you might not be a visual thing, it might be some other mathematical model you have, but it's interrogating each of the strands of the worry in turn, so that if you have 6 big buckets of worry, you would have 6 big diagrams or 6 charts or 6 pages where you've really interrogated the stuff. And there's 2 questions I want you to think about. Number 1 is, well, they're sort of related to where it's coming from, but where is this whole worry coming from? Is it coming from you? So are you generating all the worry? Is it you? And in the case of my memory loss or concern, it is it's my epilepsy that's given me memory loss, but it is me that's worrying about it. No one else has said to me, a bit worried about your memory, Katie. Although my mother does point out I don't have one. But that's mostly because I forgot shit that I couldn't really be asked about remembering. But it's not coming from someone else. My husband isn't saying, listen, love, you shouldn't have been in Marks and Spencer's with no clothes on if you forgot to put them on. It is just coming from me. So where is your worry coming from? And is it coming from someone else? So did someone else make you feel like, well, they didn't reply to that message and they didn't invite me to that, and the rest of the group knew about it, but I didn't? And is that someone else that's making you worry? Someone at work that's just being a bastard and just making you feel like shit, and that's them? Or, and this can sometimes be the case even when you think it's someone else, it's actually you, because you're misreading what they said or you're interpreting their stuff differently. It doesn't massively matter, but think about where all of that worry, so my memory loss worry, it's coming from me. I'm worrying about it, I'm creating the worry, and so I own this whole bucket. This bucket is in my power to solve, right? And the other really important thing you need to add to your interrogation is it in the past or is it in the future? And you'll see, I can see much better when I draw myself. So when you look at your worry and there's a timeline, is your worry something that's happened? So maybe it happened last night, or maybe it happened last week, or maybe it happened 6 years ago, and you're in the middle of the night replaying that conversation because if you'd only just said this, or if you hadn't done that, or if you hadn't made that decision, or if you just managed to bring up about this, maybe that, or if I hadn't, if I'd settled for this in the divorce thing, or if I hadn't told my kid that. Is it in the past, or are you worrying about something coming up? So like, I can remember the night before my first radio show just being wide awake, like, oh my God, I can't do this. What will happen? What if no one calls in? What if I forget what to say? What if I press the wrong button? That sort of worry. And that's about things in the future, or things that are 5 days away, or 15 or 5 years away, like my memory, maybe, issues. So 2 questions. Is the worry coming from you or someone else? And then, is the worry in the past or is it in the future? So this is all part of you playing detective with your mind and your worries. And I'm just looking at this. We've got 6 posters on the wall, which would be very helpful. They're my lovely Mark's wine posters that help him learn about wine. But each one of those pictures on the wall is one of the worries. And then I could cover that whole poster over there with Post-its where I'm interrogating the worry, and I'm also assessing two things. Is it coming from me or someone else? And is it in the past, or am I worrying about something that could happen, something in the future? And that's it for part 3. And you don't need to fix anything. Don't jump ahead to trying to solve something. Don't try telling yourself, well, it's silly worrying about this because, or worrying never did anyone good, or worrying is a waste of time, because people can say those things at you till they're blue in the face, and they probably do. It doesn't damn well help. All we're trying to do is agree that we're trying to stop this behaviour. All we're trying to do is agree that we're going to try and sort it out into clear lines of thought, or lovely Mark's ties, as we got to yesterday. And today what we're trying to do is lay those ties out, each one in a frame, and then interrogate it to say, where's it coming from? What do I worry about? What's the detail behind the worry? And is it coming from me? Is it in the past, or is it in the future? That's where we should be up to right now. And tomorrow, excitingly enough, she says, as she turns to her handy list to show that I actually thought this through, which again, I'm quite, I don't want to say I'm impressed with myself for doing something properly, but, I am. Tomorrow, we're going to look at how we can start to put some of these things away. But all we're trying to get to today, so don't push ahead, is to interrogate it and to be really honest with yourself. And it doesn't matter if the worry is really embarrassing. It doesn't matter if you're 40, whatever I am, 8, 7, 8, and it's like, I'm worried that she doesn't like me anymore. That's fine. It doesn't matter if it makes you sound like a 3-year-old, or I'm worried that I might piss myself next time I sneeze. It is actually fine, because it's only you that's looking at this stuff, unless you choose to show it to someone. And the more embarrassing the worry is, the less you are likely to talk about it, why it matters that you do. And perhaps it might be helpful. It might not be. It depends if you're like me. If you record, just put your phone on voice notes or whatever, and record yourself as you talk it through, just so you have someone that you're talking to, even if that someone is yourself. Right, that was part 3. So tomorrow, in Worry Week, we're going to move to part 4, which will be about looking at how we can start to package some of these areas of worry, the worry buckets that we've interrogated, how we can start to put some of them away. So stay tuned for that. And meanwhile, do one lovely thing for yourself tomorrow, even if it's taking 5 minutes longer in the shower than you normally would, and screw the energy bill. One lovely thing, because what matters is that we all get through this darkest of winters together. I will see you for part 4 with me, Katie Hopkins. I am back for part 4 of Worry Week, which, as we appreciate, is not about worrying more. It's about thinking about worry and how we try and put it away. And I have just been out on date night with my husband. So I'm dressed like an actual grown-up, and we've been to our favourite Indian, which I love. And I was the designated driver. And I can tell you that never happens. So I'm sober as a judge. Not that judges are particularly sober these days. In fact, most judges, I think, are completely whoop whoop. So let's briefly recap where we've got to, which is an agreement, number 1, to stop worrying, or that we want to do something about it, and that actually a lot of this self-worrying that we do and filling up our brains with everything is a kind of self-harm. The next thing we talked about was the unraveling, which was lovely Mark's ties, trying to think about our worries and get them in some kind of order. Yesterday, so part 3, was about interrogating each of those worry lines that we have, each of the worries in turn, and trying to just think about them, what the worry actually is, what is the real thing you're worrying about, and whether that comes from someone else or whether it's coming from yourself, and whether it's in the past or it's something going forward. So that's as far as we got. So this part is all about starting now to deal with the worry. And my suggestion is, each time you catch yourself at 2 in the morning, or in my case 5 in the morning it would be when I wake up, having a worry, you almost go back to step 1, where you think, this is not helpful to myself? What is it specifically I'm worrying about, or separating those out? And then more specifically, is it coming from me, someone else? Is it in the past? Is it going for? So each time you almost begin that process, and the more you repeat it, the more it will become kind of a natural circle of things that you have to go to in quite a disciplined way to stop what we're trying to stop, which is the behaviour that causes us to feel really, really overwhelmed. But now it's about thinking about how we put this worry away. So let's take one specific example, which was my example about my worries that I will have dementia, or I will have complete memory loss, or that one day my memory will give up on me entirely and I might not know. And if I wanted to exit my life before that happened, how will I know? That worry. So that worry for me is in the future, and it means that I have to kind of work through it. But instead of allowing myself to carry it around with me all the time, so that all the time I'm slightly diminished because I'm always thinking about the fact that, well, one day I won't have this memory, or what happens, or when something happens, like I put the kettle away in the fridge, is that the start of it? Is that the start of me not knowing what I'm doing? In order to stop that behaviour, the only thing I can reasonably do, because I can't solve this problem, I can't fix it, I can go and have tests done, but I rather fear the result of those. I can research, but I see the research already from rugby players and others, and it isn't looking that great. And I also have had kind of tests for this specific thing, because after my surgery, they do checks to see just how badly your memory and other functions of your brain have been impacted. So I know some of those tests. But on a regular basis, there's not a lot I can do about it. So my method for this, and I think it's one that's great for you as well, and if you think about, do you remember Lovely Mark's ties? So now imagine that each of these boxes, right, here we are, this one, and this one, and this one, corresponds to a worry. Imagine, if we're talking about Lovely Mark's ties that we were using as a sort of demonstration of our worries, imagine each of these boxes is actually specifically, this box is specifically for one of your big worries. And this box here is specifically for another of your big worries. And this one here, the same. So what you are physically and mentally going to imagine is that you're taking this worry, so this would be about my memory loss and when my dementia is going to kick in, and when am I not going to know myself anymore. Hold on. And if I wrote post-it notes about all the things, when we were interrogating the worry, we knew it would be about, well, what will happen about the kids, and will I know my memory's gone in time or not, and what happens if I don't know my memory's gone and then I'm found naked wandering about in Asda, and if I do want to exit early, who will help me? And all of those different things that you came up with your post-it notes or your interrogations of this one particular, remember this is about one particular worry. You're going to go through them. You're going to accept that there's lots of elements to this worry. But once you've had your little moment of having a worry about it, maybe you've said, all right, 10 minutes, I'm going to just think about this. You're going to put them all into the box, and you're going to agree with yourself that you're going to shut the box down, right? Then you're going to take the box. You can physically seal it if you want to. You can do something clever where you fold it specially so it stays shut. And you're going to put this box on a shelf. So you're going to take that one worry, this is just one of your worries, and you're going to pop that, I'm just going to pop it here, on the shelf. And the same with other worries that you need to, or that you've interrogated, the same process. You're going to mentally or physically take the box with the worry in. You're going to put all of the different elements, and you can talk them through again, and you're going to physically or mentally put that box on the shelf, and you are going to repeat that process. Now you could say this is mad as a brush. You can say, well, Katie, seriously, mate, I've got a job, I've got kids, I've got things to do, bills to pay. I need to ring my mother. One of my kids is sick. My daughter's bike, moped, is not working. I need to go and jump start it. I just had to do that. I could do with really sorting out the upstairs room because I can't even get to my bed because I can't even find it. I've got more pressing things to do than pretend to put shit in boxes, and I haven't got time for this. I'll just watch this, but I won't actually do it. And I suppose my thing to that is that that's on you, and that actually part of being able to care for all those other things you've got to do, which, believe me, I understand, is looking after yourself and self-care. And at the very front end of this, we talked about whether you really want to stop worrying. And if you do, part of that, a bit like Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever, is making the time commitment to attend a meeting, or in our case, making the time commitment to take 10 minutes to just take that worry, work it through, interrogate it, put it in a box and pop it on a shelf. And you can also say to me, but that isn't really helping much, is it? You're just putting it in a box, putting it in a shelf. You're not dealing with it. But when it pertains to something going forwards in the future, as my memory issues might affect me, I can just work through them each time and then agree to put them away because I can't solve it because it's in the future and there's nothing directly I can do about it. But I can agree that at a certain point in my day, I need to pop it away. And what we're going to talk about in the next part is what you're going to do, this interrogation that you've just done. And then we've done our boxes for things that are in the future that we can't really control or change, but we can spend some time thinking about and then agree with ourselves we're going to pop away. We're also going to talk about now, in the next part, what you can do about worries that are being put on you by someone else. Someone is making you feel that way. Someone is making you feel anxious. Someone who's not you. Something you're not in control of necessarily yourself. And the other thing we're going to talk about next time is things that are in the past and how we put those things away as well. So this has been about putting away worries that are going forwards. And the really, really important thing is that you don't have to succeed at this. It's not that you just do that once. You put it in a box and you put it away and that's it. None of this is that. It is all a constant process, but a process with structure and a process that has end. So if you have my rule, which is no thinking before coffee, but later in the day, if I catch myself worrying about what will happen with my memory in the future, I can go back at a time that I agree is a good time for myself. I can get the box back off the shelf, open it up, go through some of those things again. And probably this time I'm going to take less time doing it because I've done it a few times. I know what those things are in there. I know what's in my control and what isn't. I know what I'm worrying about and why. That's all okay. And so I can put the box back together, pop it back on the shelf, and I don't even have to be anxious that I've cut myself off from solving this later, because anytime I want, I can go back and revisit the worry. But equally, as I carry along about my normal day, that worry is self-contained. And I suppose the overarching thing to this is, this works on so many different levels. So this can also work with major, major crises in your life. And one of the things that people always said to me, or say still, is I don't know how you deal with all the stuff that comes your way. I don't know how you deal with all the unkindness, all the stress, or the horrible things that have been said or written. And this is how. And people used to say stuff like, oh, it's water off a duck's back, or you've got the skin of a rhino, which partly is true because my skin's quite wrinkly, but as in the hide of a rhino, that you've got a thick skin. And none of that was ever true. It's just that over 2 decades of doing this and needing to self-preserve, I learned these techniques from myself. And these are techniques I use all the time. And the more you use them, the more efficient you are at them. And it's why if I need to, I can put a whole bunch of things in this box, things that have been said, things that are untrue, things that are unkind. Let it go for a bit and give myself a break, knowing that I can always revisit it. So This is Worry Week with me, Katie Hopkins. We're going to put this all together at the end of the week so you've got it all in one place. And this has been about really things that are in your future that you can take time away from because you put them in a box on the shelf and you can access them wherever you want. And next time we're going to talk about things that are being done to you that feel much less in your control and things that are in the past, so that we learn how to package them away or deal with some of those as well. So I'll see you next time for Worry Week with me, Katie Hopkins. I am back for the final part of what has been a 5-part spectacular for Worry Week. And as you'll know, and we say often, it wasn't about worrying more. It was about stages of processing worry so you worry less. And to recap, number 1 was to stop worrying and agree that it's a kind of self-harm, that you actually want to stop that behaviour. Number 2 was kind of unraveling worries in your head that are scrambled, so you're separating out the worries. Then it was about interrogating each of those worries to see what it's really all about, not just some jumble of thought that's not clear, but to clarify different points associated with each worry. And then yesterday we were talking about how you can start to pack some of that away. So this idea of physically or metaphorically getting a box, seeing yourself put the worry into that box and agreeing to put it on the shelf, even if it's just for now, knowing that you can get it back later, have another little worry about it if you want to, but agree at the end of that worry, you're going to pop it away. So in this final part, I just wanted to talk about a couple of other more general points about worries or anxieties. And those were ones that are being done to you, or things that might be coming up in your future that you feel like you've got no control over, but that are causing you to worry. Also, I have a hair that's itching my nose. So, number 1 was about worries that are being done to you. So people that are making you feel anxious, or maybe someone at work that's not replying how you thought they would, or you sent them something and they didn't respond, or you're on a group chat but you feel like this way, or someone's made you feel this way, or the actions of someone else have impacted you such that you feel worse or more horrible about yourself, or you're worrying about the impact of all of that on you or the people around you. And in my experience, as well as allowing yourself to recognise that it isn't nice to feel that way, or it might not be very nice what's been done to you, and there's some classic examples in my life, being awarded award for being an absolute CUNT, and then that video being made public to, I think, 12.4 million people. That would be an example of someone doing something to me that's maybe causing me worry or stress or anxiety. And in my experience, after a moment of allowing yourself to just fall into a dark hole, which is perfectly acceptable, the way out of that dark hole and the way to start dealing with the worry is that you keep reminding yourself who you are. So you keep reminding yourself that whatever Andrew did to you, that's him, and that is on him. Or whatever Sharon did to you in the group situation, that's on her. And typically when people act a certain way towards you, it's because they're loaded with something. They're cross at you about something, or they're loaded with something, or they're jealous of something you're doing, or they wish they had something you're doing, or they've had a crap day and they want to take it out on someone. But none of that really matters, the sort of causes. All that matters is how you are and how you behave. And I know it's something that's said a lot, but you can only control what you do, what you say. Only the things for which you're responsible are actually in your control. And therefore, really, the only things you should allow yourself to worry about, in the sense that you might want to fix them, is your own behaviour. But if someone else is doing something to you and it's causing you stress, you have to call a stop to it. You have to say, I know who I am. I did what I said I would do. I'm being a good friend, or I'm being a good worker, or I'm being a good person, as long as those things are true. And so I have to let them own that. And that's exactly where I got to with that whole awards thing and many other things that have been done to me by newspapers or headlines or unkindness or untruths that have been spoken by someone else, is they have to own that. But as long as I know what I know to be correct, and I know that it wasn't that way, and I know that I did as best as I could in the situation I was in, it's okay. So there's that kind of conversation with yourself about just owning your own worries, but not allowing yourself to take on worry or guilt or allow someone else to make you feel a certain way, because really, honestly, that's on them. And sometimes when someone asks you a question, but you know what they're doing, they're deliberately asking you the question because they know it's hurtful to you. So, oh, did you have to sell your house? Well, you know I did, and you know why. And you know it's been horrible. You don't have to answer anything they asked you. All you have to say is, I'm going to let you own that question, because obviously the answer to it would be hard for me. And just push it back to them. Let them own their unkindness, because it's not yours to take on. And I do that a lot in life now in a really soft and calm way. And people really aren't sure what to do about it, but it's the very best way to deal with the unkindness of friends or colleagues or people who are trying to put you down. The other thing I wanted to address was when something big happens and you truly think, like, either you're going to vomit, be sick, you think you're going to pass out, or it's just so awful. The worry of what's about to hit and the worry of everything is too big, like maybe you just crashed your car and you feel terribly, or you just lost a job or whatever. After a moment of falling into the dark hole, which you should do, and that's fine, because we're not superhuman and we're not all like, oh, Zen, this is just how it is and I'm just going to start processing this. First of all, allow yourself to fall face forwards. And I've done that physically on a number of kinds. It's the reason this tooth isn't where it should be and this lip is smashed because I smashed my face in. But anyway, after a period of coming out of the black hole in terms of just lying in a dark space and wanting the world to end, the very comforting thing, and it was said to me by my producer at my radio show LBC when I was fired, or no, one of the catastrophes in my life. And she just said, and she kept saying, this too shall pass. And somehow in that very moment when I was unable to breathe because of the world folding in on me. I think it was just after the court case actually that was lost, and so a new law was made up just for me. That was, well, of course, for me to have to sell my home, and all of the left on Twitter and wokedom were laughing at me and enjoying my pain. This too shall pass. It does have real, this too shall pass, those 4 words have real impact. And even at the very worst of times, even if the outcome is going to be truly horrific, as it was in the court scenario for me, and that impact, I'm sure it still has repercussions in my life and my husband's, this too shall pass is actually correct, because as every minute passes, it does become easier. And as you keep breathing your way through it, this does pass, this too shall pass. And it is a really powerful set of words, because it's a reminder that other things in your life that you thought were almost life-ending, or were, surgery, etc., that were supposed to be or could have been life-ending, weren't. And so you can really trust that this too shall pass. And I suppose in some ways, if it doesn't, well, bugger it. Life's over, game's up, and you don't have to worry anymore anyway. So you can criticise all of what I've just done, in the sense that, well, none of it really solved my work. It didn't pay my bill, did it? Or it didn't get my mum talking to me again, or it didn't sort out the fact I'm getting divorced, did it? And the answer to all those questions is no, it didn't. There were no practical solutions to the actual worries that you have. But actually, a lot of the things around that worry, the noise, the amplification, the lack of sleep, the stress, the lack of your brain space, sometimes when you find you're not breathing properly, that's you doing that to you. So the worry is real, and solving that worry will be helpful. But the additional anxiety you're causing yourself is what we've just tried to fix. And might not fix all of it, but even if it reduces it by a squeaky 2% or a chunkier 10%, or as you practice this whole idea of agreeing to stop, sorting out the worry into piles, interrogating it so you're clear, putting some away, addressing some or asking others to own worries they're trying to give to you, and acknowledging that this too shall pass. I will get through this. As you roll through that process, and you can see how easy it comes to me, it's sort of 5 steps that I go, you can roll through, I'm going to get that box down, I'm going to go again, roll through it again. You just keep rolling through it. And it doesn't stop, and it's not that it ends, but you now have like a seatbelt in a car, or oven gloves when you're touching something hot, or I don't know, a life preserve if you're going in a boat. You have a way to defend yourself against possible harm that you're doing to yourself with all the worries that you carry. So I hope that Worry Week has been helpful. What I'm going to do, which you might now be at the end of if I've already done, is I'm going to package these together into one helpful, hopefully, video, and then I'll put it on YouTube. And then maybe if you are alone at 3 in the morning and you're having a good old worry, you can kick in and say, do you know what, I'm going to watch that bloody awful woman until I fall asleep. And hopefully, if nothing else, this Worry Week video in full will have shown you, I'm hoping, a range of tops. Did I change them every day? And if not that, it will help you with some tools that you've got to use to help preserve yourself and give yourself more space to breathe. And with that extra space, I strongly suggest you do one nice thing for yourself, even if that is drinking wine, as is my penchant. Do something and replace the space that you've freed up from worrying with something nice for yourself. Okay, that was me, Katie Hopkins, on Worry Week. And I really hope you found it useful. And if we did, maybe we'll have other weeks. and I'll see you somewhere. But do sign up as well. Join us at katiesarms.com, where you'll just get regular blogs or thoughts from me, or any of the latest news we have on events that are coming your way. Okay.